Everyone thinks the artificial intelligence revolution is a battle of software. Built by geniuses in hoodies living inside clean Silicon Valley offices. That assumption is complete nonsense. The most lucrative business in artificial intelligence isn't code, it isn't algorithms, and it isn't chatbots. It's an aggressive, physical, old-school land grab for the most boring assets on Earth. Power grid access, concrete slabs, water rights, and heavy industrial transformers. While the public watches tech giants compete for digital dominance. A quiet group of landlords, utility companies, and private equity funds are building physical toll booths across the American landscape. And every single time you ask an AI a question, these hidden players collect a check. To understand where the real money is moving, you have to stop looking at the screen and start looking at the dirt. When people talk about AI, they think about the cloud. But the cloud isn't an abstract sky where data floats around. It's a massive, heavy, loud concrete fortress consuming as much electricity as a medium-sized city. Right now, in places like Loudoun County, Virginia, or desolate stretches of rural Texas, developers are buying up agricultural land at prices that make no sense on paper. Why? Because underneath that soil lies something far more valuable than gold: direct access to high-voltage transmission lines. The market for these industrial properties has ballooned into a multi-hundred-billion-dollar engine, driven by an insatiable global demand for physical computation space. Big tech companies need these facilities immediately, but building them is an operational nightmare. You can write code in a weekend, but you cannot build an electrical substation in a weekend. This delay creates an unprecedented economic imbalance, where whoever owns the physical site holds all the leverage. So who actually owns these invisible goldmines? You might assume Microsoft, Google, or Amazon own all their facilities outright. But that isn't how modern corporate finance operates. A massive portion of America's digital backbone is owned by specialized entities known as data center real estate investment trusts, along with secretive private equity firms like Blackstone and DigitalBridge. These institutions act as the ultimate landlords of the digital age. They buy the land, secure the permits, negotiate the power access, and then turn around to rent the shell to tech giants on long-term, inflation-protected leases. The tech giants take on the extreme risk of rapidly depreciating chips, while the real estate operators sit back, taking almost zero technical risk, collecting long-term guaranteed cash flows backed by AAA-rated corporate balance sheets. The revenue engine behind this physical infrastructure operates on layers that most investors completely miss, starting with basic space and power capacity. In this world, rent isn't calculated per square foot. It's calculated per megawatt. When a hyperscaler leases space, they aren't paying for floor area, they are buying guaranteed, uninterrupted electrical capacity over 10 to 15 years. Then comes the liquid cooling tax. Modern high-density microchips run so hot that traditional air conditioning fails completely, forcing operators to install complex, closed-loop liquid cooling systems. These infrastructure setups carry immense service fees, charging continuous maintenance, water usage fees, and specialized monitoring expenses. On top of that, there are cross-connect fees. If one company inside a facility wants to run a high-speed fiber cable directly to another tenant's hardware, the landlord charges a recurring monthly fee for that single physical connection. It costs pennies to maintain, but generates hundreds of millions in high-margin cash flow every single year. However, the real financial magic happens inside the hidden profit drivers, starting with power purchase agreements and switching costs. Once a tech company installs tens of thousands of specialized servers inside a specific data center, moving them out is almost impossible. The physical logistics, hardware recalibration, and downtime risks create massive switching costs, giving landlords immense pricing power when leases come up for renewal. Furthermore, these operators secure long-term power contracts at wholesale rates and structure their leases so that any increase in local utility costs is passed directly to the tenant. If energy prices double overnight, the tech giant pays the difference, while the landlord's profit margin remains completely untouched. Now, You might wonder why everyone doesn't simply jump into this business and start building data centers on every corner. But the cost structure creates an almost impenetrable moat. The capital expenditures required to break ground are staggering. A single large-scale facility can cost well over $1 billion before a single server is even plugged in. Driven by heavy equipment costs like industrial diesel backup generators, custom cooling towers, and heavy-duty transformers. Then you have the compliance and grid integration costs. Securing approval from local utility commissions and environmental regulators can take anywhere from 3 to 7 years. Creating massive fixed costs long before a site produces a single dollar of revenue. Only players with deep institutional pockets and direct lines to Wall Street debt markets can survive this prolonged cash burn. This immense capital barrier explains precisely why the industry scales in favor of gigantic monopolies, leaving almost no room for small operators. Scale brings immense purchasing power when negotiating with heavy equipment manufacturers, allowing mega developers to jump to the front of multi-year hardware waiting lists. If an independent developer needs 5 high-voltage transformers, right now, billions of dollars are flowing into artificial intelligence. But almost every dollar you hear about is a complete distraction. Wall Street is obsessing over software apps, chatbots, and microchips. Yet the people making the most guaranteed wealth in the AI boom aren't tech founders at all. They are power plant operators, industrial landlord cartels, and high-voltage electrical grid monopolists. Think about this. Every single time ChatGPT answers a simple question, it consumes 10 times more electricity than a standard internet search. A single modern AI data center can demand as much power as a city of 300,000 homes. Silicon Valley built the brain, but they forgot that the brain requires an impossibly massive physical body. And the people who control that body are quietly extracting trillions of dollars from the biggest technology race in human history. This is not a story about code, or algorithms, or venture capital. This is the story of the hidden physical infrastructure underlying the United States, the unseen economic machine that powers AI, and the small group of players who locked up the grid before anyone else even realized what was happening. When you look at the tech news, you see shiny logos in San Francisco. But if you follow the money down to the physical earth, it leads to a quiet, unassuming county in Northern Virginia. Loudoun County, once known for horse farms and quiet country roads, now processes over 70% of the entire world's internet traffic. Why? Because 20 years ago, long before AI was even a buzzword, a few far-sighted infrastructure developers bought up cheap dirt right next to major fiber-optic trunk lines and built massive, windowless concrete boxes. Today, tech giants like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google don't actually like owning these buildings. They prefer to rent them. Enter the data center Real Estate Investment Trust, or REIT. Companies like Equinix and Digital Realty don't write code. They buy land, pour concrete, line the walls with security guards, and rent out digital floor space. They sign tech giants to 15-year contracts, where the tech giants pay for the building, pay for the electricity, and pay for the maintenance, while the landlords collect guaranteed, inflation-protected rent checks month after month. It sounds like a simple real estate play. Right, but that is only the surface of the operation. Because building a massive concrete box is actually the easy part. Keeping it from melting is where the real fortune is made. Inside a modern AI data center, thousands of high-performance microchips are stacked on top of each other, running so hot that traditional air conditioning is completely useless. If you try to cool an AI server farm with standard fans, the fans themselves consume more power than the computers. So, how do you stop a multi-billion-dollar supercomputer from catching fire? You flood it with liquid. This created an entirely new, hidden industry overnight. Liquid cooling dynamics. Companies that manufactured industrial valves, liquid cold plates, and specialized synthetic coolants suddenly found themselves holding the keys to the future of technology. Instead of circulating cool air, modern facility architectures pump specialized dielectric fluids directly across the silicon chips, absorbing heat at a rate thousands of times faster than air. if a tech giant cannot secure enough industrial chillers and specialized plumbing. Their multi-billion-dollar AI models simply cannot run. The software engineers might get the headlines, but the liquid cooling valve manufacturer holds all the leverage. Yet, even with infinite space and state-of-the-art cooling, the entire AI boom is currently hitting a massive, terrifying brick wall. And it's a bottleneck that money alone cannot instantly fix. It's electricity. The United States electrical grid was never designed for this. For nearly 2 decades, total power consumption in America was essentially flat, growing at less than 1% per year. Power utilities built their business models around predictable, slow growth. Then, almost overnight, AI arrived with an insatiable, endless appetite for pure energy. To put this in perspective, building a new data center takes roughly 2 to 3 years, but getting a new connection to the regional electrical grid, that now takes up to 7 years in major U.S. markets. Tech giants are standing on empty land with billions of dollars in hand, ready to build, and the local electric utility is telling them, "We don't have the power to give you." This sudden energy crisis created one of the most aggressive corporate land grabs in modern economic history. Big tech is no longer just buying land. They are buying entire power plants. Consider what happened recently in Pennsylvania. An old, retired nuclear power plant at 3 Mile Island is being brought back to life for one single customer, Microsoft. They signed a 20-year agreement to buy every single megawatt that plant produces, just to keep their AI algorithms running. Think about the sheer economics of that move. An entire nuclear reactor, dedicated not to lighting up homes or running hospitals, but to feeding a digital neural network. And this brings us to the most crucial, unseen layer of the entire system: high-voltage equipment manufacturing. When a power company needs to send massive amounts of electricity into an AI facility, it requires heavy industrial equipment: transformer substations, switchgear, and massive electrical breakers. Companies like Eaton, Schneider Electric, and Siemens manufacture these giant metal boxes. Here is the secret that Wall Street missed. You cannot just order a utility transformer on Amazon. Before the AI boom, manufacturing a large electrical transformer took about 50 weeks. Today, the lead time is over 4 years. There is a literal world queue for heavy electrical transformers. If you don't have transformers, your data center is just an expensive, empty warehouse. The companies making these unglamorous, heavy industrial components are enjoying record profit margins, because every tech titan on Earth is desperately outbidding each other just to get to the front of the manufacturing line. So, who is funding all of this? How do you pay for hundreds of billions of dollars in power lines, concrete, nuclear contracts, and liquid plumbing? This is where the financial giants step in. Wall Street private equity. Firms like Blackstone and Brookfield have quietly shifted tens of billions of dollars away from traditional investments and poured it directly into physical AI infrastructure. They realized something fundamental: software trends come and go, applications go viral and fade away, but physical infrastructure is an unbreakable toll road. When a private equity firm funds a $10 billion data center campus, they aren't taking venture capital risks. They lock in long-term offtake agreements with trillion-dollar tech companies. That means even if an AI company's software fails, even if consumers stop using a specific chatbot, the tech company is still legally obligated to pay for the facility power and lease for the next 2 decades. It is the ultimate asymmetric trade. Big tech takes all the risk of building software, while private infrastructure funds capture all the guaranteed cash flow from the physical world.